behind screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt a mental robbery, executed sloppily. Hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance fall. That is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Soul, where today we're talking about the cross of Hendaye. I should have looked up how other people pronounce this because I've only ever read it, and I don't know if I'm saying it right. But it is the cross of Hendaye, Hendaye, and not Hyundai, the car. And so we're going to be looking at this. I actually came across this concept through a show I used to listen to every single episode. It is a high quality, great show, and that is Greg Carlwood's Higher Side Chats. I haven't listened to that in about 6 years or so, but I imagine it's still a very high quality show. And he had a guest on who I reached out to in hopes that they might want to come on this show, and I have not heard back. So I'm going to talk about this cross from what I can learn about it, and I appreciate them for bringing it to my attention. I always like to shout out whoever, I get ideas from, as no one does for me. But I live as I would like to others to live, and I treat others as I would like to be treated. So there's the golden rule for you. So we're going to talk about this cross of Hendaye. It's really fascinating because it seems to indicate exactly what I've been talking about for, I guess, more than 4 years now, which is this geomagnetic excursion. It is the coming electric superstorms, or these big galactic waves that are coming through the solar system and are going to change Earth, the polarity, the the magnetosphere, and technology as we know it, and everything else as far as we can tell, as it has seemed to have done cyclically over the ages many, many times on Earth. So it seems to cross with those ideas that that's what's coming. And again, I actually received this understanding and knowing from my spiritual channels, from my spiritual guides, having no idea that there were plenty of both scientists and spiritual leaders who have said the same thing for a long time. So I came to this independently, and I have found lots of confirmation for it. I've never asked anyone to believe me. I don't ever care if anyone believes me or not. I just know what I know. I know what I'm told and shown, and I share what I can with the people who want to hear it. So, if you're a fan of this show or my work, that's what I've been talking about on and off, not every episode, not every day, but more and more so as we're getting closer to the event for years now. And so this cross of Hendaye sparked my interest because it aligns with a lot of that. So that's really interesting for me. We'll talk about a few other things too, especially how NASA and other, the powers that ought not be have been actively suppressing this information, not just for many, many decades, but more specifically recently. And they're doing a lot of disinformation around it, which is even more evidence that it's true, in my opinion. So very interesting. We'll look at that too. We'll do all of that tonight, and we'll begin right now. So I want you to go to roguesoul.org right now. I want you to sign up for the emails list that I send out. At the bottom of every page, including the homepage here, you can find the email sign up. And when you do this, you also get a free gift, which is a spiritual guide of just some basic practices that are good for anybody at any level to implement. And that's free for you if you sign up. The reason it's good to sign up is sometimes my communications get disrupted. Sometimes people aren't allowed to see them. Sometimes even if you go directly to the site, it just won't work for you. And so there's a lot of that tends to go on with me. And so here's one way we can try to keep in touch. I send out very few emails. And when I do, it's because I have big events that I'm inviting you to, or some sort of offer that I'm making to you. And maybe that happens about 12 times a year. So very unlike most places you sign up for email. So it's a good way to stay in touch. Also at roguesoul.org, my books are here. The trilogy that you can read, it's a fictional trilogy. It's actually about exactly this cycle that we're talking about tonight, and moving back into the ages and perhaps forward into the future. So that trilogy is here. It's a fantastic read if you like fiction. It's realistic fiction, in my opinion, but that's not how anyone else is going to classify it. That's for sure. We also have the spiritual source channeled messages, and all endings are beginnings, and the key of transformational healing. Powerful reads and quite short. So really good to pick up if you just want an extra oomph in your spiritual world. And I also offer ceremonies with people using plant medicine and otherwise. I also do retreats. So far every summer, we're going to be doing those retreats. And you can visit the shop and you can check out all of my orgone lotus votives and pillars. You can get custom orgone made. They're highly powerful devices that are super good to have in your home and to work with in meditation or prayer or otherwise. I'm also offering the Heart-Centered Healing course, and that's here in the shop. And the Heart-Centered Healing course is a direct teaching of how to do energy healing and how to implement it instantly. By the time you're done with this course, you will have already worked with people on the energetic level. So this is a direct teaching, and also we're going to be doing practicums where we're working on one another and getting these skills directly. So it's a skill that grows the rest of your life. You continue to implement the practices, it continues to clarify and get better. But as soon as the class is over, you should be able to offer these healings to other people, no matter where you're starting from. So some people are coming in having worked with me and have a bit of their spiritual channels already sort of opened and widened and ready to go. And some people are coming in fresh start, and all people are served by this, and all people are going to be able to step in. So if that calls to you, that's going to be this September through October. The Heart-Centered Healing course. It's the first time I've offered this direct of a teaching, this practical application based, and it's because of the time we're in, right? I follow my guidance on these things. I don't just make things up because I like to do them, or, I follow the guidance of what people need and also what's appropriate to give. Not everything is appropriate to give to everyone at every time in their life. And so I've been guided to offer this at this time for a reason. And so if you feel called to it, it's for a reason, and you should follow that call, and I hope you join us. So that's all of that at roguesoul.org, my site. I also publish on rogueways.substack.com my articles, my channeled messages. So if you had been following this 4 or more years ago, you would have already known this geomagnetic excursion, this solar forcing, this event that is cyclical would be coming soon, because that's when I was told, and that's when I shared it on Substack. So if you subscribe on Substack for free, you get plenty of stuff. You get all of the information, and you also get the previews to the channel messages. If you pay and are a supporter, I appreciate you so much. It supports the show, it supports all the work I do, it supports the writing that I do. And so you get that bonus content while also supporting me and the show. And so you get channel messages if you're a supporter. I appreciate all the people who are supporters on rogueways.substack.com. It's a main way that I keep this show going. Otherwise, I get almost nothing for it, and almost never have gotten anything for it. So this is just the way it is, in these times when so many voices are suppressed. So thank you for giving value back if you have found value here on Rogue Soul or Rogue Ways. roguesoul.substack.com. Go sign up now, free or paid. Thank you. And so we'll get started here with this cross I mentioned. This is the cross again of Hendaye. I don't know, again, how you pronounce it, so forgive me if it's different than that, but that's how I'll be saying it. Croix de Hendaye. It is like Hyundai. It's funny if you're saying it in the pronunciation that the Romance languages would give it. Hendaye. It's a stone cross. It says located, and we're here on Wikipedia. Yes, it's compromised, but it's a good place for basic information. So it's a stone cross located in the town square of Hendaye. And I'm going to pause actually after I've said that, because this actually offers more information than I ever would have expected from Wikipedia. So really interesting. Some things I think are so obscure that they haven't gone in to really muck it up too much yet. And they put warnings on those ones, right? That they haven't been able to muck up much. And then so we have this warning. This article has been flagged for containing fringe theories. Oh no, fringe theories? You mean things that might be true but haven't yet been popularized or mainstreamed? Oh no. So warning for fringe theories, and warnings that some of the sources aren't reliable. So those are the things they put on, right, to lead you out if you're unawakened, non-critical thinker. Then those warnings are like, oh, okay, well, we can just let go of this one and not even look further, right? But you and I know better. So for some reason, Wikipedia's got this a little bit of information still available here, but they've got the warnings to lead you off of it. All right, so the cross of Hendaye, they say, is a stone cross located on the town square of Hendaye in the Pyrenees Mountains in southwest France. So a lot of occult ancient stuff seems to be over in Europe more so. I mean, you can find it anywhere in the world. There's nowhere where our ancient civilization traces aren't found, or the teachings of those ancient civilizations haven't been encoded in some way and left in some way by the societies of people who have kept it going. There's nowhere you can't find that, but you do find a larger concentration in Europe, in the Middle East, and some of these areas because people have been continuously living there since that time, right? And a lot of the people who escaped Cataclysm in the past came ashore in a lot of these places and brought some of their wisdom and their teachings there. So, that's why you tend to find this. So it says the cross includes references to apocalyptic beliefs about, it says about Christianity, Rosicrucianism, and alchemy. That's not actually the way this sentence should be written. It should be references to apocalyptic beliefs held by and maybe even Christendom in pre-Nicene Council, right before everything was locked down and controlled even more. So beliefs held by that and held by Rosicrucians and alchemists. That would be a more correct writing of this sentence, more correct and apt. It says many, including devotees of Nostradamus and the Bible Code, and especially the 2012 phenomenon, believed that a great comet would pass by or crash into the Earth in the year 2012, and interpreted the cross of Hendaye as another reminder that 2012 would be the end. So this sort of coincides with the 2012 stuff, but I don't think 2012 is mentioned in this cross. I think that's just brought in because it's the most recent sort of cataclysmic, expected, massive uprooting or change that we've seen in the popular mind. But we'll see if something more specific comes up. Otherwise, it's just throwing a bunch of stuff at you that doesn't really have anything to do with the cross. So this is another way that they muck things up, right? Instead of just describing the cross and what's actually going on with it and just like, here's what the facts are, they're like, oh, by the way, 2012 people, Nostradamus people, Bible Code people, Rosicrucians, alchemists, they all like this. So if you're already predisposed to see any of those people as like loony or sort of like off the mark, then you're already checking out, right? So anyway, that's sort of how they do it. You know that I'm a Rosicrucian, perhaps if you follow this show, and I am a Rosicrucian because it is the only organization I have ever found that doesn't impose beliefs on the people involved in it, and offers a sort of structured access point to a lot of information. I am a couple years in now, and I will tell you, I've learned maybe 2 things I didn't already know. So I've told you before, like, if it's meant to be secret, they haven't done a very good job. People are like, oh, it's a secret society. Not really. It's not secret, and none of the information in it is secret. And if you understand me and who I am, their sessions or their meetings are exactly like my show Middle Path was before I ever know what Rosicrucians were. You literally get together and you meditate for a second with people and you talk about a thing, and it's open-ended and there's no dogma at all. It's just, what do you think about this? And they're all people who tend to be like well learned in all the subjects that I talk about on Rogue Ways, Rogue Soul, all the subjects I write about in my books and have for years. So it's really just like, oh, these are my people. They're non-hierarchical, non-dogmatic, critical and open thinkers about every mystery that's ever existed. And they like to meditate. So it's like, so that's Rosicrucians at the heart of it, if you want to get down to it. So even that is much maligned, and they throw this in here to sort of like make people not trust it for some reason. But Rosicrucians are just scientists, alchemists, philosophers, and mystics. And that's it. They just gather together. So Christianity used to be that, by the way. Before the Council of Nicaea, that was basically Christianity. It was philosophers, mystics, spiritual people, scientists, the scientists of their days, right? And then it got, distilled and dogmatized and turned into a hierarchy, which again are the things I hate. And now it's like modern Christianity. So, I always talk about, I love Jesus, I don't love the church. I love Jesus, I don't love what they did to all of this, right? And alchemy is the same. Alchemy is just science and philosophy and mysticism wrapped up together. So really interesting that those are the energies that they're aligning with this cross of Hendaye. So we'll see. It says the cross comprises 3 parts with engravings in its stone. I'm going to enlarge this for a second if you're looking, so you can just see there's this, I always forget what it's called, but it's the equal cross, right? There's like equal distance on both sides instead of that elongated bottom we see in a more modern cross. So that kind of crosses on the top. Then we've got this pillar. It's sort of like an Ionian or Cornic pillar. And then the base has some celestial indications. And I'll say the sun looks unhappy. The sun looks unhappy, and that's a critical point here. You could make suns that are very happy, and there's plenty of examples of them in lots of texts and lots of ancient stonework and otherwise of a happy sun. This is a very obviously unhappy sun. Right, so that's very clearly indicated. His eyes are stressed. His mouth is like, oh God, like you would if you were or scared or angry, or both. So that's the cross here. It's got a lot of symbols on it, and we'll get into those. And there it is. So 3 parts, it says, with its engravings in stone. These engravings picture alchemical symbols that occultists believe contain encrypted information on a future global catastrophe. An important part of understanding the cross is found in the writings of the mysterious alchemist Fulcanelli, who hints in his 1926 book, Le Mystère des Cathédrales, which is the mystery of the cathedrals, that on the cross is encoded a warning of a purifying fire that will soon consume the northern hemisphere. Not the southern? I don't know. And so Fulcanelli, is he a mysterious alchemist? I mean, he's an alchemist and a scientist. Is he that mysterious? No, he's a mystic. That doesn't make him mysterious. In fact, he writes everything he thinks in books you can read. So again, not a lot of mystery there. Pretty recent too, 1926. Fulcanelli is one of those thinkers that you might want to get in touch with if you like to think. But he says this. So he has decoded it, and he has said that this cross hasn't warned of a purifying fire that will come. You've heard me talk before about all kinds of people who have written about this. My most recent was Nicholas Roerich, who I just didn't know about, and then I found him, and then he's talking about this purifying fire as well. He's talking about it coming at this time. I mean, a lot of people who either study history have come to this conclusion that there's cyclical destruction, it's coming again. A lot of scientists who just have put together the right pieces have come to this conclusion. We'll talk about some of them today. A lot of mystics have received this as a vision or a knowing, like myself and like Nicholas Roerich. And a lot of people have come from a lot of angles, like myself, and seen that like everything actually seems to point to this once you get past the sort of mainstream and the sort of, people who are just checked out or not thinking at all, or, this lower level or just surface level. I'm not trying to, criticize anyone for staying at that level, but that sort of level of thinking, once you get beyond that, this is where all signs seem to point to. A lot of things seem to point to this. So Fulcanelli also has looked at this cross and talked about all of these symbols and their possible meanings. It says the creation and transportation of the cross of Hendaye is rumored, and it doesn't say by who, to have been funded by a Christian society known as the Rosicrucians. They're not a Christian society, and that's very, very clear and obvious. They love Jesus, just like they also love every other Christic consciousness that has come to this place. So, and I shouldn't even say that because there is no uniform set of beliefs for Rosicrucians, but tends to be most people honor Jesus as a master and the Christ consciousness as something that is attainable, which Jesus also said and taught. So are they Christian? Sure, technically, in the sense that Christian means those who, or he who, or to be Christ-like, those who are Christ-like, those who want to be Christ-like. So sure, right, if you're a Rosicrucian who honors the Christic energy or Jesus Christ as a representative of that, and your aim is for yourself and everyone else to walk the path that leads to that, meaning that leads to enlightenment and an enlightened society, in touch with all aspects of self, balanced in all aspects of self. So really strange to call them a Christian society. No one would do that. That's not a thing, and it's not really appropriate. It's very technically true, but no one understands or talks about the technical meaning of the word Christian. When they say Christian, they mean of the church, and it's very much not of the church. Like so clearly not of any church. So really stupid to say so. So again, did they fund it and create it? Maybe, but what would be much more accurate would be to say a Rosicrucian funded and created it, because it's quite rare that the organization would come together to fund anything other than a place for the group to meet, a place for wisdom to be stored or knowledge to be stored. That's it. There's nothing else Rosicrucians do. You know, so they're very few, but a few like actual Rosicrucian temples, and the rest of us meet in like whatever will rent us a place to meet, you know? So pretty weird to say, especially with no evidence that Rosicrucians did this. This was the same thing was said about the Georgia Guidestones. Doesn't have anything to do with anything Rosicrucian at all. But because it said RC Christian, people are like, oh, the Rosicrucians did it. I'm like, well, that's a pretty easy. I used to say this too, right? Because that's the idea about the Georgia Guidestones before they were so strangely destroyed. But again, the Rosicrucians as an organization wouldn't even really likely be able to pull that off, because there is no structure internally that's just like for gathering funds and then like deciding what to spend it on. That's not like a thing that happens. And also because it's not their goal. So I don't know. Like, again, maybe a Rosicrucian did it. Fulcanelli was probably a Rosicrucian. Most alchemists, philosophers, mystics are Rosicrucians. They're not Masons. They're not, you know, Knights of whatever, Malta, or, you know, they're not these other sort of allegedly secret societies. They're Rosicrucians. So that's always interesting to me too. So anyways, it says the cross is a paradigm for synergy. Whoever wrote this sucks so bad at writing. But to say something is a paradigm for synergy doesn't even make sense. A paradigm is a worldview. Is it a worldview for synergy? Does synergy use? No, not. You would say represents the paradigm of synergy. It's just learn to write. It's so basic. It's not even a complex thing to say. Anyways, the cross represents the paradigm of synergy, I will say. And the synergy idea is just that there's a larger whole, that the whole is larger than the parts. And this is actually the truest thing to say about this idea of the solar forcing, the geomagnetic excursion, the larger universal energy wave that's coming through this system soon, or that we'll be crossing through, might be a better way to say it soon. And that this is cyclical because we cross through and then back through again. And this is what creates the ages and our traveling through the ages and our level of consciousness and all of these things. That is synergistic. It is thinking beyond just the little systems going on in Earth. In this is whether you think it's a flat plane with a dome or you think it's a globe, doesn't matter. But within that system, we think about the energies within it. We don't think about it being affected by outside energies. In fact, you're looked at as crazy if you say, for example, you know, what's happening on Saturn has something to do with what's happening on Earth, or what's happening on Neptune has something to do with the consciousness of the people walking around on Earth, right? You're looked at as a little crazy. But this view actually says, like, yes, all energies affect each other. This is a whole. And so what's happening on the largest scale matters here because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? So it's another way of saying it is possible for a galactic wave or a universal wave of energy to affect life on Earth. That's another way of saying that this cross represents the idea of synergy. It says the entire monument is said to be a schematic of the Philosopher's Stone. And this is also another thing that's often misunderstood. The Philosopher's Stone is literally just the process of you waking up. It's you waking up and crystallizing your consciousness and stepping into a higher form and committing yourself to that way of being and not falling back down into your lower nature and not falling back down into the easier, you know, lower grade forces of society that are trying to make you choose the easier and the lower route, right? That's the Philosopher's Stone, is like crystallizing this in yourself so that it's so strong and your will is so aligned, you couldn't be pulled back down. That's the Philosopher's Stone. People are like, oh, it's turning lead into gold. That's a metaphor. You're the lead and you're turning yourself into gold. And it's only by your choice that you can do that. There's nothing that weird about it, actually. It's very true in psychology and in every way you can look at it. So is this a Philosopher's Stone schematic? Sure, because the only way to avoid destruction actually is to create this in yourself and to be of such a high vibration that this coming wave doesn't shatter you to pieces, as I've said so many times. So of the symbols it says found on the cross, it's essential to examine all the parts of the cross together so that a holistic interpretation is faithfully determined. Anybody who's intelligent would just say that. Like, it would be stupid to just look at one part and be like, that's just its own piece. And then we'll look over here and they're separate. Well, it was brought together on one piece so that you would look at it together. So yeah, definitely look at it holistically. So here is the actual monument itself divided and analyze. It says there's the upper cross, the Greek cross, the column, and the pedestal base. Each are further divided into their own components. The upper cross has 3 symbols, the pillar has its own symbol, and the base has 4 symbols. So on the upper cross, 3 main symbols are the traditional inscription of INRI, I-N-R-I, which is how Jesus is referred to as the King of the Jews, both at the beginning of his life and at the end. So INRI is there. Look at it on the top of the cross. It has 2 double X markings, which is just 2 X's, and a broken Latin inscription that reads, O crux ave spes unica, which is hail to the cross, our only hope. I'll pause there again and I'll say even the cross is also a representation of just you here on earth as the connection from the divine to the material, and as the thing that can connect with and affect this plane, this material reality. So the up and down part is you connected to your divine self here on material reality, up and down. And then the side to side part is you using that effect to affect the world. It says you are an agent of the divine if you choose to be so. And that's what the cross represents. And that's why it says, hail to the cross, our only hope. Our only hope is that people wake up and realize their effect on this plane and choose to use it for good, for the channeling of the divine energy. That's it. It's not that mysterious. It's not Christian. Jesus also taught that. And, allegedly he was crucified on a cross. So how ironic. But either way, the cross does not represent Jesus's death. It doesn't represent a mode of torture. It doesn't represent a mode of murder. It represents this. You are the cross. That's all. It says these symbols offer a 3-way interrelated meaning system, which gives the key to understanding the entire process as symbolized by the monument. The pillar plays a unifying role in the monument that serves as a link which bonds each element of the cross together and explains that each portion of the cross is to be considered in union with the remaining portions of the cross. The cross is a single entity, and its overall meaning is not to be interpreted based only on one of the elements, but rather the overall meaning should be based on all of the elements together. The base, 4 symbols engraved on the base, must be taken as a united whole in which the order and meaning of the symbols are constant. The images are an 8-ray starburst. I'm going to say that represents the either micronova sun or the coming of the energy, or possibly even a light that we would see in the sky before the event really hits. That's my interpretation, the message I'm getting around it. So that's the 8-ray starburst. A half moon shape with an eye spot. So that might even indicate the phase of the moon that we'll be in when this event occurs. It also would obviously represent the subconscious or the feminine or the receptive side of self. And angry sun face. So it's not just me. Other people are interpreting this as angry as well. Angry sun face with a bulging spiral eye and an oval that fills the entire space of the rectangle, which is quartered by a cross. Yeah. Very angry sun. It also is reminiscent of some of the Mayan iconography of the angry sun as well. And so that would be no accident. That would be intentional. And so it'd be meant to, and that might be how it got connected with 2012 at all, or just, again, that they're both apocalyptic or of cyclical destruction and cyclical catastrophe based. So that's definitely probably indicative of exactly this time where the sun is angry, right? And we know it. The sun is bursting and it's like going insane, and it's been going insane, and it might go insane for a little bit longer. It's in that phase. And so the angry sun is here. And an oval that fills the entire space of the rectangle. It has 4 A's in that oval as well. Those A's could also be interpreted as potentially the compass, right? That is a part of the Masonic iconography. Again, not because they own it, but because it actually represents something. And what it represents is the grand architect of the universe, which some interpret as God and some interpret as Jesus. And some people interpret Jesus as God. So however you want to go with that, there's an architect or a design here. And it's a symbol of balance as well. The cross is also in this sphere. It's also perhaps then the coming back of Christic consciousness. And that balance and that very intentional design would indicate that this is an intentional thing that happens. So the idea that it might be purifying and that the cycle and the cyclical nature of it is part of the design of how things go here may be indicated by this oval with the A's and the cross. Sun face symbol, it says, is framed by 16 large spikes, which is the sun rays, perhaps, if you want to think about them that way. Inside and contained by an outer circle, the sun is then surrounded by 4 stars. And so those might also indicate that larger energy that's coming in and connected with the sun. The sun isn't acting alone. It's not like the sun just does this. This is like a larger energy that comes in and activates the sun to do a certain thing, right? Go micronova, as we might call it in scientific terms, or something else. It says the sun is surrounded by the 4 stars, which are placed in the corners so that the diagonal axis continues through the center point of the sun face, which then draws a galactic alignment. Okay, so yeah, I'm not the only one taking that interpretation either. So about the oval and the A's, it says it doesn't actually have an interpretation. So I'm sticking with the one I already said with the architecture, and that this is perhaps a return of Christ consciousness, which is also what I've been told about it. And then that's a part of the cycle that happens. So it goes deeper into Fulcanelli's deciphering then, which is really interesting too. INRI, it says, is most commonly known as the acronym of the Latin phrase, which I'm not going to try to read, which translates to Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews. Though through the Rosicrucian alchemical tradition, it's interpreted a little differently, which is by fire, nature is renewed whole. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. I'm going with that interpretation. One, because Jesus isn't just the King of the Jews. Jesus would be much higher energy than any one group or race or religion or whatever could claim. And so that could be translated that way. I'll remind you too, Nazarene isn't a place. Nazarene is a way of living. It's more like a paradigm. And Nazarene would be more like the paradigm of living like the Essenes did, for the good of all and in a simple way and of a spiritual nature and intention and set of practices. And there may be other things included in that, but that's the basics of it. So Nazarene isn't a place, it's a way of living. So Jesus the Nazarene, sure. King of the Jews, it's not big enough. We're not only talking about them. So by fire, nature is renewed whole. That makes more sense. That actually clicks fully. So INRI would be Igni, Natura, Renovatar, Integra. I like that. So the Christ consciousness is returning in energy, or you might say by fire, by plasma, by this electric universe that's interconnected much farther beyond our solar system, much farther beyond even our Milky Way galaxy and into the whole universe, and that this is a cyclical thing that occurs. And so by this return of this energy, it says nature is renewed whole. And that's not just talking about like, oh, everyone's going to be killed and nature will be able to thrive. We are also nature. You are nature. So you are also renewed by this. Or you're not, because you choose not to be. And that's cool too. That's people's choice. Some people are going to choose not to be. That's what I was also shown, right? Is that some people are going to be hit by this energetic wave and basically ripped apart by it. But if you're listening to this and that worries you, if you're listening to this and you have any sort of alignment with this and you understand the things I'm saying, you're probably not one of those people. You've probably chosen already to be of the light and of your highest consciousness to the best of your ability, which is all it takes, right? It's not that hard. It's hard to then purify. That part's hard. That could be difficult, but that's its own thing. If you ever need support with that, let me know. I do work with people one-on-one on all this stuff, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, all of it. So that's there on my site, roguesoul.org. You can click on schedule a session, or you can go straight to my Calendly page, which is how I book, which is calendly.com/rogueways. So this is one of the key maxims of alchemy as well, that nature is renewed whole, or Igni, Natura, Renovatar, Integra. It also holds Christian belief that the end of the world will be signaled with the return of Jesus. There you go. And that the wicked will burn in fire. It's not quite like that. It's not like Jesus is going to come back as a dude and be like, you die and you die and you die. Like, this isn't an Oprah show. But the consciousness will come back, and the energy may feel so intense to some that they're crushed beneath it. They're dissolved within it, is what I will say. Dissolved within it. which is also a mercy. And so people will be made whole, nature will return to wholeness. And that's it. Is it a judgment? Only in the sense that you chose and you're either here or there, right? Just like you can say, oh, that thing's there and that thing's there. It's objectively different. It's not judgment as in you suck and you're cool. It's not, there wouldn't even be a purpose for that. But to just say like, you're 3 feet tall and you're 5 feet tall. Yeah, sure. That's a judgment. It's a judgment. It's not a qualitative. It's not a value judgment. I'm not saying you're a bad person because you're 3 feet and you're a good person because you're 5 feet. They're saying like, can you ride this ride or not? Are you tall enough to ride this ride? Okay, you are. Cool. Get on. Oh, you're not? That's fine. Maybe next time. Right? No judgment. Double X's. It says the 2 X's are placed on the upper cross, firmly planted in the symbol of Christ. There are 2 possible explanations behind this. First is that the 2 X's symbolize that Christ is the Alpha and the Omega, as described in Revelations. Christ is thus the beginning and the end. The second explanation is that these 2 X's are a reminder of the shape of an hourglass. The hourglass was the main system of timekeeping during the time of which the cross was created. Fulcanelli believed that the hourglass meant several things on the cross. First, he believed that it represented how the time of the world was running short. Second, he believed that while the first X symbolizes the beginning of the world, the second X symbolizes the end of the world. For an alchemist, the beginning and the end are both with fire. Fulcanelli believed that the end of the world would come by fire. The third explanation is that these 2 X's symbolize the galactic alignment and that the time when they would align is the 21st of December, 2012. I don't know that it indicates a specific time at all. In fact, it has been said, and I think this is the most accurate, is that no one will know the day or the hour, right? We might get a few more signs, right? Like I've been given some of these visions, some of these things to know that it's even happening. And maybe, again, like I said, one of those starbursts is like, well, we're going to see this in the sky. We're going to know it's just about time. So we might know about what time. I've said many times, for me, it's within the next 8 years maximum. There's no beyond that possible, in my opinion, in my experience, right? I'm not just guessing. This is what I was told by an ascended master who came into physical form in front of me and told me that. I have no attachment to it. I don't care if it is true or not, right? I'm just relaying what I've been told. And so before 2033 is when it's going to happen. And the X's to me might indicate, as they sometimes do, a more nefarious energy or force. This is like the cross twisted. You might look at it that way. A lot of people have said the X within a circle is the, Antichrist or the twisted Christic energy. And we definitely have a lot of forces that want to keep us from recognizing how powerful we are as we lead up to, especially an event like this, to keep us at our lower vibration, to keep us in our lower aspect of self, and to keep us not rising up with this energy as it comes. So I would say that those X's might represent an attempt by something to block us from this ascension, if you want to call it that, or just this upliftment, or from, like, again, riding the wave as it comes, getting on the getting on the ride if we're tall enough, and from keeping people from getting tall enough, so to speak, right? So I would guess the X has something to do with that. Fulcanelli says it might be a timepiece, sure, but again, we wouldn't know when anyway. We also have that O Cruz Ave Space Unica, which translates to Hail, O Cross, Our Only Hope. When examining the inscription, Fulcanelli noticed something unique about the inscription, and that was the misplaced S. Although he called attention to the incorrect grammar, he believed that there was no mistake, but instead that the creator of the cross wanted the interpretation to be measure of the 12th part. Fulcanelli believed that this phrase was clear reference to the cosmic cycles and alignments. He believed that the S, which takes on a curving shape of a snake, corresponds to the Greek chi, or X, and takes over its esoteric meaning, making reference to the key or the cross in the sky, which are made by the X of the snake or the dragon. Fulcanelli informs us that this explanation is the helicoidal track of the sun. Ooh. We're actually going to, that's so interesting. So I actually have this helicoidal track of the sun brought up, even though I didn't know that he was making reference to this. So a lot of times we see things like this that actually have double meanings or triple meanings or more. So it probably was saying, oh, hail across our only hope, as again, we're hoping we rise up in our consciousness enough to, have the Christ consciousness return to earth, at least in the form of a person, if not many people. And also, it could be an indication of this, this is actually what's going on with the sun, and this is what's happening, and it's a cyclical thing, but we're actually moving upwards, not just repeating the same thing over and over again. Seems like cyclical destruction, but you can look at the circle or keep going to the same thing again, or you can kind of twist it and see we're going up all the while, right? See it from a different angle, and we're saying like, yeah, it's a circle, but we keep coming back to the same things, but we're doing better each time. There's still growth here. So that's interesting too. The snake or the dragon also is indicative of our inner sort of spiral of energy. And that's also where we ascend. That's how our consciousness rises up within us and gets back to the point of integration with the crown or the highest level of consciousness, in which case we can channel those higher energies into this plane, which is the point of ascension or higher consciousness. And so the snake or the dragon also connects with that. So that's really interesting too. It could be indicating our self rising up in the form of the cross, in the form of the snake, in the form of the dragon, and the sun's cyclical energetic patterns that cause this energy to return over and over again, or at least are an indication of its galactic and universal crossings that it makes. Super fascinating that it could be all of those things at once. So that's Fulcanelli's deciphering of the actual cross. Fulcanelli's deciphering of the base is that there's 4 symbols found there: the sun, the moon, the great star, and the simple circle with the A's in it. The circle is divided by 2 perpendicular diameters into 4 sectors, which there are 4 A's displayed. Okay, so here we'll get into what they say the A's are. The 4 A's can be used to explain the 4 phases of the great cyclic period in medieval times. The 4 phases were represented either by the 4 evangelists, their symbolic letter, which is the Greek letter alpha, or by the 4 evangelical beasts surrounding Christ. These 4 quadrants are believed to stand for the 4 ages of the world. This symbolizes the diagram used to indicate the solar cycle upon which the galactic alignment and precession rest. Yeah, that is, that's definitely in alignment what I was feeling too and saying earlier. Specifically, also, these ages are aligned with the yugas, the Indian yugas, which are the first way I encountered this idea of cyclical movement, right? Through not the circle, but the spiral, and that we have a dark age and a light age, and we have the ages in between, right? And so this is sort of perhaps indicated by that too. Also, it's a timing mechanism, perhaps. And again, like I said, the idea that this is all designed for a very specific purpose, which is to help you achieve your Christ consciousness, and that it's intentional and that it's perfect, actually. And so it looks to us like it's scientific, and the sun is moving, the solar systems in space, and the Milky Way, and we're crossing galactic current sheets, and all of these things are happening. But it's also this inner spiritual process of which all of those things are, in a way, a reflection of, or at least the matrix, meaning the mother, meaning the womb in which we develop. Perfectly designed. It says this traditional formula is often seen on the tympana of Roman porches, where Jesus is shown seated with his left hand resting on a book and his right hand raised in the gesture of benediction. That symbol also with the 2 fingers and the thumb is a reminder that these are the most energetic fingers you have for transmitting energy and information. You kind of might have even done this on accident, where you're like holding your head when it hurts, and you're doing it with your 2 pointer finger, middle finger, and thumb, right? Right? And we do these things sort of automatically because some part of our physical body remembers how it was created, how it was structured, how it was supposed to work. So things like this are what I'll be teaching in the Heart-Centered Healer class in September, and more. He is separated from the 4 beasts, which attend him by an ellipse, which is called the mystical almond. It's also called, when it's a little bit different, the mandorla, which is when the 2 circles overlap and create that sort of almond shape. And that's the energy through which transformation comes. These groups are seen in many chapels and cathedrals throughout Europe, including the Templars church. So yeah, these symbols are ancient, and they carries very specific meanings and information with them. So interpreting the cross, it says, through analysis of all the alchemical symbols found on the cross, it's believed that the cross of Hendaye is a physical representation of the belief that the world is quickly coming to an end. It's really not fair to say that. There's no one who's really said it's ending. They're saying it's transforming. They're saying it's purified by fire. It might be that it ends, and if it does, so will all of physical reality. And that's cool. That would mean we made our goal. We don't need physical reality anymore in order to understand our spiritual selves at our highest level and commit to it. That's neat. No worries there. And otherwise, it's not ending. It's just transforming greatly. It's a big change, which has happened many times throughout history, even of human civilization. So I don't just mean like the history of geology and the universal forces and what I mean, like on Earth with humans present. This has happened before. So as the symbols suggest that what they're calling the end of the world will occur in the midst of fire, this belief was brought upon by the ancient Christian group, the Rosicrucians and alchemists. Sure. Many believe that the end will be the return of Christ, as referenced in the Bible. Yeah. The Great Cross of Hendaye says is believed to describe the end of both the 4 ages of the Hindu yoga. So that was what they were talking about, those 4 symbols, the 4 A's, and the structure of this, the design of it. As well as the 4 ages of alchemical chronological timekeeping, which are very similar and aligned. And it says, Jay Wagner cites Fulcanelli's quote. Here's a Fulcanelli quote: "The age of iron has no other seal than that of death. Its hieroglyph is the skeleton bearing the attributes of Saturn. The empty hourglass symbols of time run out." And again, if time and space ends, if time and space end, material reality ends. If material reality ends, you just only exist then in your consciousness form, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's like, it's okay. But the end of the world, it might be that. And world used to mean universe, not Earth. World used to mean everything that exists in material reality, not Earth. So end of the world, I mean, that's like a big event. I'm like, I'm here for it. Again, you are too. And it's not bad. Everything still exists. There's just no physical material universe. And that's because it won't be needed. It was created because it was needed. It will be ended when it's not needed. So that would be a great event. That would be like everyone returning to Christ consciousness at once. Oh, okay, cool. But the end of Earth? Otherwise, no. If the universe is going to exist, Earth will still be here and will still be here. Like, that's what it's here for. All right. So that's Fulcanelli's interpretation of the Cross of Hendaye. It's a very interesting cross. Again, it was brought to my attention by that. I saw like an Instagram post of the Higher Side Chats, and I don't even remember who's on it. Sorry, I don't remember the guest, but he was talking about this, and I was like, I've never heard of this cross. So that's really interesting. And I didn't know it had Rosicrucian energy supposedly around it, or creation even of it. And I didn't know all of these things about it. So I'm glad I got to explore this with you guys today. And as you know, like I was here before the cross. I was here before I found the cross. I was here before I understood what the cross had on it. The cross actually aligns, and all the information on it aligns with what I've already been saying, what I've already been told, and what I've already been on myself. So it's another affirmation, in my opinion, of that cycle. We are approaching another big transformation point within. And so we're doing that, on the physical level, on the scientific level, we're doing this because we're crossing the galactic current sheet. And the galactic current sheet, this is an AI overview of it, and it says it's can refer to a few things. So we're actually going to look at both. One is the heliospheric current sheet, which is our sun's, energy as it goes out into space. If you have seen sort of images of, for example, the Milky Way, you see like a bulging center of light where a lot of stars and suns are, and then you see the disk that kind of comes out from that, and it's relatively flat. But there's things above and below it, and that's what we're talking about here. If you can imagine the sun as that, and the galaxy as that, and the universe even as that, then you can imagine there's things on either side of like a central energy column, and they cross it sometimes. This is actually true within us too, and that's a whole other show. But that's our energy center and column too. So there's things crossing it. So our sun has this, and the planets crisscross it. And then the galaxy has this, and our entire solar system crisscrosses it. This plate, this energetic plate. And then the universe has this, and the whole Milky Way crisscrosses it. So imagine if it happened that the entire Milky Way was crossing the universal current sheet exactly when our solar system was crossing the Milky Way's current sheet. That makes the most sense to me as to what's happening. A lot of people are just looking at the Milky Way current sheet. So we'll look at that, but you keep that in your mind that that's my understanding is we're doing both. And here we are. So, AI says there's the heliospheric current sheet, and then there's also the galactic sheet. And sometimes that's referred to as the Great Wall, which is also interesting. I've never heard this before, actually, until today when I was getting ready for this show. A massive cosmological structure, it says, made of superclusters of galaxies stretching hundreds of millions of light years across the universe. And that's what I was just describing. They actually have a name for it. They call it the Great Wall. I wouldn't call it a wall. It's not meant to keep anything out. I would call it a central energetic channel is what I would call it. I would call it the axis of the universe is what I would call it. But we're going to call it the Great Wall because that's what they're going to call it. So you can think of it either way. So there's the galactic, the solar, and the universal. Whenever I'm, connecting, I think of all three of those sort of points of space and time as these energetic super clusters of energy. So the sun is like this cluster of this plasma, this etheric, this energetic energy that we get to have. It's life-giving, it's life force energy. It's connected intricately and even entangled with the galactic, the Milky Way supercenter, the bright center of the Milky Way, and also the universal supercenter, which isn't known in physics or science, but I've been there and I've seen it. I've been taken there and shown it. And so I know it exists, and you might know it exists in your travels as well. And so all three of those are linked, quantumly entangled, if we want to go into scientific terms about it, and that's all quantumly entangled with your heart center. So there you go. You didn't know that, now you know that. And so they talk about these sheets, right? And their functions and their significance and their whatever. I mean, you don't really need that to know, like, it's a lot of energy. It's a really high, pure form of energy. Even in materialistic description, you could say that. The sun is, the middle of the galaxy is. If they acknowledge the center of the universe, then that would be two. So there's that. And we're crisscrossing it all the time in various ways. They don't even think this matters. We'll get to that. We'll get to that right soon here. I don't think we need to look more into it. We understand that it exists, and that's good enough. What's interesting, well, just actually before we get to some of the other lies about these and how they don't matter, these big super clusters of energies, galactic sheets and universal sheets of energies that we're crossing. We are talking about the local sheet, which is the Milky Way in our solar system, and the local solar systems are sharing similar velocities. We're sort of together on like one layer of the energetic that comes out from the center of the Milky Way, you could say. And I just wanted to pause here to say one of them, what we're called, is the Council of Giants. If you look at this map they sort of have of these galaxies, we're one of them, right? Here's the Milky Way. Andromeda is the one we hear about most often. It's the closest to us in space. And we're part of this sort of ring of galaxies, which are called the Council of Giants. We're ringed around by them, and us and Andromeda are actually in the middle of them, but we're part of this Council of Giants. So I thought that was really interesting. We have this name for this, not the galactic, sheet itself, but a lot of these galaxies that are in the Milky Way, solar systems that are in the Milky Way galaxy are part of this Council of Giants. I love it. The Council of Giants, we're part of it. Okay, so I just thought that was cool. It doesn't really have a lot to do with what we're talking about. Here's an image, and this is what was so fascinating when we were reading through Fulcanelli's interpretation of this movement of larger structures in space-time. He was describing this snake or dragon movement of the waveform, and here it is in purely physics, scientific sense. They're not talking about this mystic, Fulcanelli, alchemist sort of stuff, but they're describing the exact same thing. And that's fascinating to me. So that's why I said that earlier, like, oh, wow, I didn't know that this was going to connect so directly. But this is a shape, they say, of this heliospheric current sheet. So our sun, we can look at it as sort of flat, but it kind of wobbles, and then all the planets kind of go through, that sheet as well. And it's this sort of spiral shape. It almost looks like a rose, to be honest, which is even more interesting given the iconography used to talk about the greater consciousness developing within ourselves and the universe, which is the rose, which is why Rosicrucians are called Rosicrucians, the rose cross. So there it is, what Fulcanelli described before he could have known for sure that this was the way that the energy moves in this spiral with, it's like a double spiral. What do you even call it? Is that just not just a spiral? It's got waves going both ways. So anyways, really, really fascinating that that is described here and on the cross. Way before they could have known, right? So why is the Mayan calendar connected to the cross of Hendaye? This is just a modern occult interpretation. It's not historical. It's not archaeological. Jay Wadner and Vincent Bridges proposed this theory based on the work of Fulcanelli. And, you know, they do both talk about this fatal season, they're calling it, or this end of times, or at least the end of the Iron Age and the beginning of the Golden Age. Or do they think we're in the Iron Age? They think the Golden Age is about to begin? I really don't think so. I could be wrong. I thought we were in the Dark Age. So whatever. We'll be leaving the darker of the ages and back towards the lighter of the ages. See, so it's not, they don't even think it's the end of the world. But the idea that it was 2012 is clearly not what was happening. Again, it could have been just this marker in time. A lot of people did wake up then. Like a ton of people just like came out of their like, oh my God, I was totally asleep and look at everything that I am and that the world is and like, what does it all mean? You know, so that happened. That's a for sure. Whether it was because there was so much talk about it or not, you know, who knows? It doesn't even matter, but it happened. It happened. Life's changed in 2012 for sure. For sure. And they've been changing since, and we've been waking up even more since. And again, whether it's because of like really dark things, like global tyrannical attempts at control that wake people up as well, or whatever, it's still happening. And so we still are definitely coming up into higher levels of consciousness. And Mayans definitely talked about that too. Right. And that is also a form of purifying. And it's also a form of purifying by fire, right? Knowledge and wisdom and light burns away the sleeping, the dross, the lower energies, the like lack of awareness. So, and yeah, but like, is there going to be another bigger event? For me, yeah, for sure. Again, within the next 8 years, something much more physical, direct, and noticeable, if not catastrophic, will occur. And wake people up even more. So yeah, the cross doesn't indicate a date. The connection between these things is loose at best. The fact that they both do talk about ages, cyclical things, that everything will be transformed, that it's coming, that it'll be about this time, like, sure. Yeah, that's it though. And there's tons of those. So there's no reason to limit it to the Mayan calendar and the cross. There's plenty of other things we could look at, and we'll look at some of them that are just as relevant. So I love it too. I've seen the meme, maybe the meme where it's like the Mayan who was dyslexic and wrote 2012 instead of 2021, which is hilarious because 2021 was another big moment where a lot of people woke up, but you know, they didn't write it in numbers. So it's just for a laugh. It can't actually be true, but we can be misinterpreting the timing for sure. We definitely can. It's not a hard science there with the Mayan calendar. And so I also asked AI about the ongoing geomagnetic excursion, and it's apparently been trained to say there isn't one, which is just a blatant lie. It says there isn't an ongoing geomagnetic excursion in the sense of a full flip happening now. Well, yeah. I mean, like if a full flip happened, it'd be like done. It's like happening now. We'd be like in the chaos at this moment. But geomagnetic excursion doesn't mean a pole flip. It can happen. It doesn't have to be a pole flip. And so if we're in this cyclical thing and we're approaching it, this is exactly what we would see. The pole would start to drift. That's one of the signs and wonders we will know when the time is nigh, right? This pole has been drifting forever, for years and years and years, and it's faster all the time. So it was a really slow drift when we first started measuring where the actual polar north is, magnetically, electrically, and it's been drifting and it's faster and faster now. So it's stupid to say there's no geomagnetic excursion because a full flip isn't happening now. This is literally what geomagnetic excursion means, is that the poles are moving. An excursion, the Earth's magnetic pole is having an excursion. That's what the word means. So the answer is yes, there is one happening right now, but apparently AI isn't going to tell you that. It would have not that long ago. So they're catching on that people are learning about this and they're trying to shut it down. And we'll look at more evidence of that. Here's NASA. And this is an article, and it was published in 2021. So this is right on time, right? Right on time as people are waking up more and more. And people had been on the geomagnetic excursion and the pole flip coming and stuff for quite a while. A lot of people. It was quite fringe. It's much more getting up into the consciousness of I'm not going to say mainstream, right? But the people who like to think and the people who purposely go looking for information, this is coming further and further up into consciousness. So even in 2021, they're trying to shut it down. And here's this article. It's called Flip Flop: Why Variations in Earth's Magnetic Field Aren't Causing Today's Climate Change. And then when you go through this step by step, they never actually address why that's not true. And everything they bring up is a bit unfair, or a misrepresentation, or they're completely leaving so much out that it's not even in any way a full answer. So this whole article is bullshit. There's nothing in this article that's not bullshit. It's made to mislead you 100%. And, you know, this is one of the things is you can believe in whatever form of climate change you want. I don't care. It is clear that the climate and the big energy systems and the storms and stuff, you know, they're intense. They're intense. They're by no means unprecedented, I will mention. You know, as evidenced by this Asheville flood we had from Hurricane Helene last year, the exact same thing happened 100 years before. Not unprecedented. So people will look at it and they'll go, oh my God, this is crazy. Everything's different. I've never seen this in my life. Well, you're 40. I mean, like, of course, yeah, some things happen only once every 100 years, and they call them 100-year floods for that reason. That's a term that even insurance agencies use. Are you in a floodplain? What's the years? I was in a 60-year floodplain, I think. Floodplain, sorry. And, you know, there's 100-year floodplains. So it's like very unlikely. Your insurance isn't going to go up much at all, but it's technically possible. 100-year floodplain. So climate change, yes. Is it caused by cow farts and cars? There is no evidence of that. Is it potentially caused by natural cycles the Earth goes through every so often? There is nothing but data supporting that. Nothing but data. All the data supports that. 100% of the data supports that, and none supports the other. So is the climate changing? Yes, and it always has been, and it always will. There is no such thing as a stable climate on Earth. We can look back and see ice ages. We can see them end. We can see them start again and then end. We can see it over and over and over again. We can see exceptionally hot times, much hotter than now. We can see exceptionally cold times, much colder than now. We can see times when storms were bigger than now. And humans were alive for all of it. I'm not saying all of the Earth. I'm saying for everything I just described, humans lived through it. Civilizations have come and gone. Humans have lived through all of this. This is not new. Then the new part is that there is something that is trying to make you afraid of it, make you feel ashamed that it's your fault that it happened, make you hopeless because it's happening, and hide from you that it's a natural cycle that happens. That's the difference. They're trying to extort you. They're trying to get all your money and all of your, you know, energy out of it. That's the difference, if anything. And here we have NASA reinforcing their master's whims. So the Earth's magnetic field, it says, isn't causing today's climate change. There is no evidence that it's not. So here they say, Earth's surrounded by a magnetic field. They just go into the dumbest, lowest level, like just explanations of things you don't need to really, you do technically need to understand it, but not in order to understand whether or not this is affecting climate. In fact, the one thing you need to know is that the magnetosphere shields you from most of the energy from the sun, and it's weaker than it's ever been in your lifetime and getting weaker all the time. So more energy is coming into the system. That's all you need to even know. Just by that, any thinking person can say, more energy in Earth equals what? More movement of energy in Earth, which means bigger storms. It means earthquakes. It means volcanoes. It's actually so simple, a child could understand it. But they're just like, they're going to give you so much information on stuff that doesn't matter that you get sick of reading or sick of thinking or confused by whether this matters or not. That's what they do. And they're like, the forces that generate our magnetic field are always changing and they always have been. And so it's fine. And you're like, well, yeah, they always have been and they always will be. And we haven't seen this weakening of the magnetosphere with this wandering of the pole since we started measuring. But the past has seen it. We know we've seen it in the past. We have evidence of it in the past. So it's like, yeah, the poles flip every 300 years or so. It says that might be somewhat important if you use a compass. Or for certain animals like birds, fish, and sea turtles whose internal compass uses the magnetic field to navigate. That's the extent of the pole flip's importance to them. They don't actually know this. They weren't there for the last one. They don't know exactly what happened, but they're going to tell you that it doesn't matter at all, It might not be honest for sure either. You don't know for sure. But they can't say it doesn't matter because nobody knows for sure. It's so stupid. Again, even a child could say, how do you know for sure? And they'd say, we don't. We have no evidence to support this claim at all. So they'll tell you it's not important at all. Oh, it might be important if you use a compass. Well, everything uses a compass also, by the way. All of the satellites, if you believe they are what they say they are, all of the technology that we have, all of our electric grid matters whether or not the magnetosphere holds up or how much energy comes through it. Everything matters actually in this. Everything of our modern life is dependent on whether or not the magnetosphere holds and how much energy gets through it. And if a pole flips, we don't know. We don't know if the whole Earth sort of switches. We don't know if the northern hemisphere becomes the eastern hemisphere instead of the southern. Like, we don't know where things end up or if nothing moves. We don't know. So for them to say this is so dishonest, they don't know. And some people have claimed that these variations have caused climate change, but the science doesn't support that argument. Yes, it does. All of it does. And none of it supports anything else. And so it goes through a number of things. It says shifts in the magnetic pole locations will change climate. And they're like, oh, the Earth has done this so many times. It only affects navigation. We'll just have to recalibrate our our compasses. Why do they want you to believe so bad that you're eternally safe and everything is stable forever? Why can't they admit that this has happened so many times before? We have records of it. We have records of previous civilizations. We have records of their destruction. We have records of Earth shifting so much that the oceans rise so quickly that things like Yonaguni off the coast of Japan are submerged underwater forever. That we're actually at a high rate of the ocean's height right now, and it used to be much lower. That continents have been in different places, that continents raise and fall in an instant sometimes. We have evidence of all of this. But they're going to lie to you and tell you it doesn't matter unless you use a compass. In the reversal, they say the time intervals between reversals have fluctuated widely, but they average around 300,000 years. So they'll admit that, but then they'll tell you that it might not happen for many millions of years. They have no evidence for. They'll be like, oh, we're fine. We can be fine forever. The last one they said was 780,000 years ago. And what they don't tell you is that even though we didn't have a full pole flip since then, we've had massive geomagnetic excursions and weakening of the magnetosphere that allowed for huge storms and violent earthquakes and ice ages and other things to happen. They don't tell you that because it wasn't a full flip. Okay, but it was still a geomagnetic excursion. It was still a weakening of the magnetosphere, and it still resulted in significant climate change. An ice age is a significant climate change. And they won't tell you about that. Why? This is in an article about climate change, and they just forgot to mention the ice age that happened because of a geomagnetic excursion before 780,000 years ago. That's crazy. These people are psychos, and if they are scientists, they have to be smarter than this. They can't be doing this. I can't be smarter than them. I mean, I can be, but I'm not supposed to be. They're supposed to be the best. And this is the article they write. Oh, they say during a pole reversal, the magnetic field weakens, but it doesn't completely disappear. They don't know that. I mean, sure, completely disappear. Well, there's always going to be a magnetic field of some kind, but it could disappear 80% and everything could break down and go insane in that moment. It doesn't completely disappear. Sure, nothing does ever really. But like, be honest, can't it weaken significantly and can't huge things happen? Well, they won't even talk about that. No one knows when it'll happen. They say that the field, the electromagnetic field right now, the magnetosphere right now, is as strong as it's been in the past 100,000 years. All that means is in the past 100,000 years, it hasn't dipped below its low right now. Well, 100,000 years is a long ass time. There's been an ice age in that time and all sorts of stuff. So even that is significant. And again, in your lifetime, in the lifetimes of people, you know what, 4,000 years you've got about records for? That's it. So in that time, it's been weakening the whole time. It's crazy. They're so crazy in what they'll go out to the wildest, measurement they need to in order to sound like this is no big deal. But they're leaving out so much of the puzzle. It says some scientists estimate the field strength might completely decay. So even though they said it will never completely decay, in the same paragraph, they say it might completely decay in 1,300 years from now. It might do that. It says, but the current weakening could stop at any time. Okay, well, if you're being honest, the current weakening could increase significantly at any time too. You have no leg to stand on with your argument. That all of this is just meant to placate you and put you back to sleep. Which is fine if you want to be asleep and you want to read this and go, oh, everything's fine. Cool. I don't care. But you have to, if you're a thinking person, you want to know actual truth. You have to see through all the misdirection, all the lies, all the intentional obfuscation, all of what they left out of this article. So they're talking about the geomagnetic excursion that's happening currently. It says there is some evidence of regional climate changes during this Lachamps event. And this was an event where the pole reversed and then went back within 500 years. So again, if you just look at that event, you can see there is no absolute way to know. If in 500 years the poles reversed completely and then reversed back again, there's no complete way to know exactly what's happening. And they say there is some evidence of regional climate change. Well, you're not actually acknowledging the mountains of evidence that there was massive global climate change and that things changed so significantly that you have a hard time even measuring what happened during that time. They say, but ice cores from Antarctica and Greenland don't show any major changes. Okay, well, we'll get to that, why that's true. But they know why, but they won't tell you here because they want to only tell you things that make it seem like everything's fine. They say, bottom line, there's no evidence Earth's climate has been significantly impacted by the last 3 magnetic field excursions. Not true. Not even remotely true. There's tons of evidence, actually. It's not evidence they're looking at. They say it's insufficient energy to matter. The energy that governs Earth's upper atmosphere is about 100,000 times less than the amount of energy driving the climate systems of Earth's surface. They have no idea what drives the climate systems of Earth's surface. They have some ideas and theories, but they don't know for sure. It's so disingenuous to say shit like this. They don't even function and match. They don't even count what new evidence we have of these giant oceans under the crust. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about source water at all, which is when water just spews out of the earth forever. It never stops. It never slows down. They're like, we don't have enough water. And this water has never stopped or slowed down. Ever in the history of all things. It's never slowed down. They don't understand the Earth's system. It's so complex, and they can imagine that they understand it so completely that they can say that when the magnetosphere weakens to a point that the sun, which powers all things in this solar system, comes into the Earth in a way it hasn't since the last time before, never in our experience. that won't affect the Earth? Like, you have to be stupid and insane to say that. You're just not. And they're like, "Oh, let's be funny. The air isn't Ferris." Ferris? Say what? Bueller? Bueller? What? This is a science article and you're making a Ferris Bueller joke about the word that represents the name iron? Like, people are too stupid to know the word Ferris? You're so stupid. Air isn't Ferris, it says. There's no known physical mechanism capable of connecting weather conditions at Earth's surface with electromagnetic currents in space. That's one of the most disingenuous things I've ever heard someone who pretends to be a scientist say. There's no known physical mechanism. There's actually absolutely a physical mechanism. In fact, they have shown that lightning starts outside of this atmosphere region of Earth. It starts from outside what you would call space. That's where lightning starts. They've proven that now. NASA has to know that. But when you think about that, when you even think about that for 1 second, it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that energy from outside the Earth absolutely transfers into not just Earth's atmosphere, but Earth's crust, Earth's core, potentially, and that the whole system is energetically charged then and shifts and moves. It's actually one of the most obvious things when you just think about the sun and the Earth and their nature. The sun is a geoelectric super storm. It's like, it's beyond our comprehension nearly. And the Earth is a tiny dot of stuff. Of course it matters. There'd be no way it didn't. You have to be the stupidest, most locked down, like compartmentalized, non-thinking person to say these things out loud and think that you mean them. Or you're just a liar for your masters. One of the two. You choose. So yeah, they're nothing but lies. This is NASA's official take on whether or not the geomagnetic excursion and solar forcing or the galactic current sheets or any of these things could even affect Earth. And there's just no, of course not. It could never affect Earth, which is a ridiculous thing to say. It's ridiculous on its face. So yeah, here's some information about the Lechamp event and why it does actually show that there was a global environmental massive change. And so very interesting stuff here. They're doing new studies now. This is blueskygenetics.com. And yeah, they talk about the global environmental crisis 42,000 years ago, the global ice age, how it left and came back again even, and that all of this was perhaps caused, not just perhaps, but was directly correlated with our geomagnetic situation in on Earth. And so they're doing more studies now. It says their study is completely novel in finding that strong variations in Earth's geomagnetic field may lead to global climate changes under particular circumstances, which is contrary to current thinking. So God bless them. We apparently we need more scientists to prove this. That has already been proven over and over again. But may they find even more evidence and perhaps get a foot in on the mainstream level. So their work was based around these preserved trees whose rings recorded changes in atmospheric levels of radiocarbon through time. This enabled the radiocarbon record to be precisely calibrated through the last major geomagnetic reversal. The reason why this is more important than the ice cores is the ice cores aren't exposed. The core of the ice is not always exposed to what's happening. It's layered under all sorts of other layers of ice. So you can drill down and find all kinds of things, but this tree actually lived through it and recorded it in its bark. It lived through it and was exposed to it directly and was recording it. So they're showing that these trees can mark these changes that glaciers can't, or that rather ice cores can't. So they explain how they got to this study. They showed that megafaunal extinction, animals and especially large animals and also other extinctions were happening at this same time period. So they can show that the climate changed significantly. They can show that there was extinctions around these events, that lots of things died on these events. And so they want to be able to prove that more conclusively and present that data to the world. And that they could show that this correlates every time with the geomagnetic situation. So that's pretty big work, pretty big deal. And so they can time these geomagnetic reversals and excursions precisely when doing this work. They can describe why it's recorded, and they can explain why ice cores don't show this. So when NASA says the ice cores don't show this, they know that they wouldn't. That's why they use that as their evidence. They know that, in fact, these are the better ways. The living things that were alive at that time and the other sorts of deposits would show this much better than ice ever could. So pretty fascinating study. Again, you can find this at blueskygenetics.com, what they're doing and how they're working on this geomagnetic excursion and the data that supports the understanding that this is exactly what causes climate change, what causes global cataclysm, and that it is cyclic in nature and that it's coming again. So I also talked years and years ago to Doug Vogt. I tweeted my own show with Doug Vogt just last year, but the actual show was 2021. I want to say maybe even 2020. And so Doug Vogt was on the show 2 or 3 times. He has since passed, but Doug Vogt was one of the guys who was doing the most intensive work on showing the global cataclysm that is electromagnetic in nature, that the sun is likely going to have some sort of big explosion, some micronova or otherwise, that has done this over and over again, that we can trace it through time, that it's connected again to the magnetosphere weakening and all of these things, and that it's coming. And for him, it was like, I can't remember, I think he said maybe about like 70 or more years out, potentially. I don't know if he thought that it could be as close in as, the next 8 years, which is what I'm proposing. And now a lot of other people have joined me, by the way. I've pointed that out before, but a lot of other people that follow this, scientifically and are in the sort of geomagnetic excursion world, they have shortened. They used to be 70 or more years out, and now they've brought it into 10 years. So I'm not alone in that. Again, I was there before they were, but because of my own channel, my own understanding, not because I'm a scientist, but just because of my intuition, my spiritual channels, and what I've been told by ascended masters who appeared in physical form before me and told me so. But they're there too now. They're physical, materialistic physics scientists, like they're there too now. So that's really fascinating to me. But Doug Vogt talked about this on my show and talked about it on his channel. Doug Vogt, or sorry, you know how to spell Doug, but VOGT, Vogt. And so you can go back to the episode, one of the episodes that he was on. You can still hear it. I don't have the video up anymore anywhere, apparently. Again, I never take my videos down, but they magically seem to disappear over time. So that doesn't exist anywhere in video form that I can find. If you can find it, awesome. But you still can listen to it on Spreaker or any other podcast platform. It is called Planetary Cyclical Destruction. And when I tweeted, I said one of the coolest psyop takes I've ever heard is the "we didn't go to the moon" psyop, intentionally meant to lead you to space is fake and gay psyop, meant to make you ignore space and the sun because micronovas will destroy civilization soon. That's one of my favorite ones, because I was also in the "we didn't go to the moon," and it is very clear that the footage we're shown and the things we were shown about it are absolutely fake. But the idea is that we did actually send something to the moon and we retrieved it, whatever it was. So something was able to get to the surface of the moon, collect stuff, and bring it back. And that we didn't actually want people to know about what we found by doing that. And so we made this fake moon landing thing to make people think that space isn't even real. Because if you think space is real, you may start to understand the way the sun affects the Earth. You may start to understand the way the Milky Way affects our solar system. You may start to understand how the universal center affects our solar system. You may start to understand that these energy sheets or waves or columns, however you want to look at it, are all going to align at some point. And when they do, way more energy can come through every system involved. And that when way more energy comes through, your consciousness may be triggered if you go on the mystical, spiritual side of things, right? At the very least, your material reality will be affected, right? Will it be purified by fire here on Earth? Yeah, probably. Electricity is another form of fire, right? To the alchemist, to the symbolic. So will it be purified by fire? Yeah, it seems that way. Will your consciousness be going along with it and uplifting? Hopefully. Right? Will the world end? Potentially. Can we get there? I mean, like, again, that would be like a good thing if we get if humanity gets its shit back together again and rises up enough that we don't need physical incarnation anymore. Like, bravo. Bravo. Let's celebrate that. Will civilization end? Potential that it won't. There's a potential that it won't. If things go the way they seem like they're gonna go, yeah, probably. Probably you won't be able to see me on the internet anymore, and electricity won't be working for a while. And if you do see me, it'll be because you have developed your higher level faculties, and we can meet on the astral and, you know, exchange some information, which we've always been able to do long before we had electric systems. The etheric connection was all we ever needed. But Doug Vogt talks about the science of this. He talks about the cataclysm. He talks about the evidence of micronovas. He talks about the evidence that the moon landing was faked, but that it was faked so that we didn't pay attention to what we actually learned from the moon, which is that the sun goes micronova cyclically and that it will therefore do so again. And that therefore all of this money into NASA and into space travel and into all this stuff is actually being used to build underground bunkers, deep underground military bases, deep underground just facilities in which the elite are wanting to ride out the apocalypse and live through it. That is just fact in my book. Like, that's not a theory even. Those things are all true, and that's exactly what's happening. So I usually hedge my, you know, I'm like, I don't know for sure this or that and this given thing, and it might be like this and it might be like that. And for this, I can say, yeah, it might be. I might be wrong. But if you're just asking me what I know and believe in my heart, like, that's exactly what's going on and what has happened. That's the truth. So you go wherever you want with it. I don't care. That's where I'm at. And so Doug Vogt talks about this. Again, you can see him on my show multiple times over the years, and also before he died, and also his work on his own YouTube channel. So, you know, we have, again, one of the evidences that we have left for ourselves, besides the cross of Hendaye, besides the Mayan calendar, besides all these other things we talked about, is the people who lived through these events seem to have indicated what they saw in the sky, and they have done it worldwide. And even though there was allegedly no contact between them through these whole periods of time, they all drew the exact same symbol on stone, and it is this man. Oh God, this man. Can you just make the image big? Is that just not possible? I have to sign into Pinterest to see this image. How stupid. This man that is exactly the same. He seems to have arms, legs, two dots next to him, and he always seems to have a penis. He has a head and he has a penis. And if you look at a plasma discharge, you will notice, just show me the image. There's open link, open image in new tab is like the only way to see an image anymore. You will notice that a plasma discharge seen here in purple looks exactly like all of these from all over the world. We have them in Arizona, in Armenia, in Guyana, in New Mexico, in Spain, in Arizona, in the Alps, in the UAE, in the Middle East, in Italy, in Venezuela. We have them in Asia too. It's just harder for us to find them perhaps and show them. They're literally all over the world, and they're probably in places underwater now too. If we had access to those, we could probably find the same thing, because what people do when they live through a global cataclysm is they try to make record of it. They try to show people what happened, and the way they can do that when they don't have electricity left and they don't have infrastructure left and they've got stone, and they're like, fine, we'll cover it in the stone then. And we have this everywhere. The chances that it would be everywhere, that didn't talk to each other, didn't communicate with each other, they all drew the exact same thing, and that it also looks exactly like what a plasma discharge looks like, which is what we would see in the sky if the sun did go micronova. The chances of that are nil. Technically possible, but nil. Very likely they drew the plasmatic expression that they saw drawn in the sky above them, who knows for how long, as the world was falling apart around them. That is emblazoned into their memory forever, and they're trying to communicate it to the future. Most of the things we see that they're trying to communicate to the future are descriptions of what happened. what used to be, what is no longer, and what might come again. You can look at all of the petroglyphs and you can interpret them this way. So quite interesting that these global petroglyphs seem to show this plasmatic excursion. And so that's where we're at. It's happened before. It's coming again. It will probably be different this time, but it'll be very similar in many ways too. And we'll see where we go with it. It's up to us, in my opinion, to raise our consciousness and meet this energy as it comes in with the highest consciousness possible. And that will help us and all of the world, no matter how you look at it, whether you think you can survive it or not, whether you think you're going to ascend to heaven or not, or, like ride in a chariot to God or whatever you think might happen, or you just sizzle to a crisp and die. Whatever you think it brings with it, it's still most helpful to meet it with the highest consciousness you can. You were always going to die. If you happen to die in this way, what an honor. You got to see one of the coolest things that could ever happen to a human on Earth, in my opinion. So again, I wrote about this more than 3 years ago. 3 years ago is just one of the times that came up in my search when I talk about the vision I was given of what would come and how it correlates to us stepping up into our highest consciousness, that all of the globe will be, or Earth, or however you want to say it, will be included in this experience, and that everyone is involved. You can read this on my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. You can read messages like this. You can read about my experiences, my visions, my channeled messages, and also just the research I do into various topics of philosophical, occult, esoteric, or spiritual significance. I share all of that on my Substack for free. You can also get the channel messages if you want to support the work and what I do. I appreciate your support so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who support in that way. And if all of this has you reeling and you want to get a little bit more anchored, or you want to connect, or you're just interested in your own spiritual journey and you want to learn more, you want to get some messages from your spiritual guides and allies channeled through, or you want to get a tarot reading, or you want to get some support for your physical aspect of health, or any of that stuff, that's all here on my Calendly, calendly.com/rogueways. You can, of course, get there through the site, roguesoul.com, and just click over to schedule. Oh, we do have the One Day of Brightness event coming up. This is in September. We get together and we do some blessings, some healing, some messages, really intense goodness, really beautiful healing goes on. And this is coming up in September 27th. So you can join us there. This is, again, a lot of my group events are much more accessible to people because they're a lot more affordable. They're also really powerful. So don't be thinking that because you're coming to a group event, you're not getting the high level energy. You are. In fact, it might be even higher in some ways because of the group's energy. So come to One Day of Brightness on September 27th, or schedule a one-on-one session of any type: sound healing, spiritual guides, channeling, or tarot. All of that's here. So I also do just the coaching and talk sessions if you just want to chat. And that's really helpful for people too, for various reasons. You either, again, want to learn about spiritual techniques, you want to learn about, mental or emotional health and well-being, or you just want to talk because you don't have anyone in your life who understands all these things. So that's also what that's for. So any of the above, that's all there for you. And I love being able to work with you one-on-one. I love being able to hold these events in which we all come together and create a field of source energy, of etheric energy, of higher alignment and intention, of healing, of blessing. It's one of the best things I get to do. So I'm loving to work with you guys in that way. We just did the water ceremony and the new moon recently, and it was so powerful. It was so powerful. This has been a summer and actually a year of really big energies. I've been doing the celestial attunements, which I was never called to do with people before. I've been doing the Leo 8/8 and the new moon and full moon energies of this month. Those have been huge. I was called to lead the retreat, which so many people got to come to, and we had such a huge transformation for the world and humanity and ourselves during that event. And all of these things I do are powerful also because of you. So I answer the call of my spiritual channels and guides to come bring you these things, to come bring you these shows. You answer the call to receive them and be a part of them. And that makes the field brighter. And it actually not only raises your consciousness, it increases your spiritual receptivity, opens your spiritual channel, aligns you with that highest level of being. But you do that for all of the world. And whether you intend to be of service or not, that's just what happens. Because it just like Rupert Sheldrake says with his morphogenetic field studies, the more something is in the consciousness of any human, the more it is in the consciousness of all humans. So as you're doing all this work for yourself, you are also doing it for all of humanity. as you're receiving all these good blessings and messages and healings and whatever, you're assisting all of humanity. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here and being you. And until you rise up into the highest aspects of yourself in service of yourself and all of humanity and the cosmos at large, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.